Yep, we can.
Beautiful. All right. Hello, everybody. Kia ora for those who are in New Zealand. I hope I said it correct. My Maori is pretty bad. But it's great to be here. So thanks for inviting me, Paul. So yeah, and you've actually started with a bit of introduction. I had a slide here, one of those mandatory slides for any event like this with a professional photo of myself and a few facts. So my name is Igor. I'm originally from Eastern Europe, but I live in Melbourne in Australia. Really nice city. If you ever are in Australia, please come visit. It's really a beautiful place to be. So today I will be waving hands, moving cursors, saying words to facilitate this conversation, which I hope you'll enjoy, because it's not going to be one of those standard webinars with me, saying a lot of facts at you so you can remember stuff. It'll be more of a conversation or a journey to discover how do we learn and how do we become specialists in what we're doing. I hope you'll enjoy it. Any moment in time, feel free to interrupt me, ask a question, send a note on chat, do whatever you need to do to make it enjoyable for all of us and potentially sharing some knowledge and experience. Speaking of which, I've spent about 15 years doing business analysis in different roles and organizations. For what it's worth, I'm certified as CBAP and CBDA, that's Certificate in Business Data Analytics, one of the IIBA specialist certificates. And we're going to talk about those specialist certificates a little bit towards the end of this talk. I worked in cybersecurity, digital consulting, spent a lot of years consulting in digital. Had a small gig with retail and then moved on to work in fintech. That's where I'm now. In my professional career, managed teams of business analysts and delivery leads. And also, as Paul mentioned, I've got a little hobby business of mine called Analyst Corner. That's an IIBA endorsed education provider. So if you want to learn a thing or two about business analysis, you can explore our online courses. But there's also a community. We run a big-ish community blog on Medium. So everybody is welcome to join, read our articles, or contribute your own articles. If you've got any interesting BA-related experiences that you wanted to share and you didn't know where to go, that might be the place to start blogging your things and get people from community to read, comment, and discuss what you got to share. So that's me in a nutshell. Now, moving on to the topic of our today's conversation, it is specialization. So it is actually quite weird how this topic came to be. About a year ago, a guy from Canada approached me and asked me to present about the value of IIBA specialist certifications at an IIBA event in Canada. I got super excited until I realized it was a virtual event. They're not actually going to fly me to Canada. Still quite fun. So what surprised me is he actually approached me about a year before that event. So I had a lot of time to prepare. And I said, sure, because a year seemed like a really long time to prepare. And I was like, I'll definitely come up with something. So about a week before the event, I found myself wondering, what am I going to say? And what is specialization anyway? Because he invited me to talk about the value of IIBA specialist certifications. But at the time, I wasn't even convinced there's a lot of value. So I was like, I probably need to think it through properly, because you don't rock up in at IIBA event and start telling them that their certificates are not good enough. So there probably was reason behind why they had those certificates. And actually, it took me on a bit of a journey. And I think I found an answer to that question, at least to myself. What is the value in them? And it took me a bit to get there. So that's what I'm going to share with you today, that bit of a reflective journey that I was on while thinking about what is specialization, how it is different to something else, and why do we specialize, and how do we as humans learn and become better at what we're doing. So to explore this topic, I'll take you on a bit of a journey. So please bear with me. It is all for a reason, and I'll come back at the end. So this is a photo of a school. This is a school where I went when I was while I was still in Europe. And as you can see, the photo was taken in the year 2000. And it always seemed really weird to me how they have these years at the entry. It seems like, years on a tombstone in a graveyard, but whatever. That's their choice of, design. Anyway, the reason I'm showing you my school is that what happens in school is you study a whole bunch of subjects. Math, chemistry, biology, physics, economics, physical education, you name it, whole bunch of things. But then what they always tell you, at least what they told me, was you need to learn all of these subjects. So then you can select one or two to specialize in. And that's how, middle school works. They give you the breadth of knowledge so that you know what is it that exists in the world. And then they prepare you to get specialized in something. So you can pick it and then go deeper in that subject matter. And sure enough, that's what happened to me. Fast forward a couple of years, I found myself in the university. There's a photo of a beautiful building of my uni. However, they only allowed really cool faculties to study there, economics, international finance, those guys. Us computer geeks, they sent us to another campus, which didn't look as nice as this one. Probably so, we're contained somewhere and we don't spread our computer geekiness to normal people. In addition, what they did is they put a faculty of psychology next to us. I don't know, probably to give us some professional oversight. Maybe it was just a fun coincidence, but yeah, we were studying there and I was doing a degree in computer science. And you know what they asked me to do in a couple of years? They asked me to choose specialization. I was like, well, I'm specializing right now, am I not? But apparently it was quite a broad area. So I had to choose something to specialize even further in. And for me, it was business process modeling and analysis. So that became my specialization, I guess, business processes. But interestingly, the same pattern remained. We started a whole bunch of things so that we can land on something to specialize in based on that broad knowledge. Now, what I wanted to do is I want to ask you a question. All of you on this call, you've got some education or professional experience. So obviously from there, you've got some specialization of yours. So mine was business process modeling. Yours might be something else. So what I want us to do is to see if you've got any specialists here and what do you consider yourself to be a specialist in. To do so, I want to run this interactive poll. I hope you can see it. So if you could use your mobile phone to scan the QR code or just go to website slido.com and use that number there. This will allow you to answer the question and we will see the answers popping up on the screen if the technology works well. Shall I give it a go?
Awesome.
Cybersecurity, nice. What else have we got? Requirements. Anyone else? Don't be shy. Process analysis. Oh, I've got a colleague there. Someone who's well versed in processes. CRM. Yeah. 8196578 doesn't sound like a good specialization, but I see it quite often. I think the system has pretty bad UI, so sometimes, yeah, you can figure out where to type the number. Tertiary education, cool. All right, that's interesting. Interesting selection. Someone else is typing. Yeah. Processes, not surprisingly. Cool. All right, look, we've got quite a selection there. Capability design, nice. And mostly around business analysis and related topics. Tertiary education is probably a bit different. I imagine that's probably your domain where you work in. So no surprises here, right? We all come from business analysis background and it's kind of business analysis webinar. So all of you have identified some specialisms of yours, right? Something that you specialize in. And probably just like with me, your specialization comes from your education or previous experience or something else. However, I'm sure some of you may identify yourself more as generalists and not specialists in your role. Have you heard this term generalist before? I'm pretty sure you have. Everybody had.
Yeah.
So yeah, beautiful. So what is a generalist compared to a specialist? I took a definition from dictionary.com, which sounds like reputable enough source for me. So a generalist, opposed to a specialist, is a person whose knowledge, aptitudes, and skills are applied to a field as a whole or to a variety of different fields. So that's the definition. Now, what I want us to do is do another fun little exercise. So, Paul, if I can ask you, can you break us into breakout rooms just randomly in pairs?
Yes.
So we can spend maybe 4 or 5 minutes and just discuss with each other. Well, first of all, say hello and use it as networking opportunity, but then discuss if you feel you're more of a specialist or more of a generalist and why. And just have this quick conversation, and then there will be a follow-up question afterwards. So yeah, there will be a test. Make sure to not forget to discuss the topic of the conversation. Can we do it?
Okay. Yep. So I'm going to set up 2 breakout rooms.
Actually, can you? I think Zoom should allow to just group people in pairs. So you've got multiple rooms of 2 people. So you get conversations between like pairs.
Okay. Yeah, it's not giving me that option on this. So I'll just do. You want to be included in one of the breakout rooms?
Sorry, say again.
Do you want to be included in the breakout room?
Probably not.
Okay. Here we go.
Thank you.
Okay, I can see people are joining the room. So I've got about 3 per room.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't give me that option.
Hey, Piers, Jan, are you guys there? We may have lost a few people.
Breakout rooms. Hi, Easy. I'm just going to assign you to a breakout room quickly.
So Paul, it didn't have an option to generate as many rooms as needed, right? You had to do it manually.
No, yeah, I had to do it manually.
Okay.
It normally does give you that. It might just be the plan I'm on. I don't know. Not sure.
It's fine.
Okay, no worries, Ian. Just let me know when you want me to bring them back.
Sorry, say again?
I said, just let me know when you want me to bring them back.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is probably in about a minute, I'll send a broadcast with 1 minute notice, and then we can, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I see some comments in the chat that slider didn't work for everybody. I wonder why. It worked for some.
I checked and tested on my phone, and it worked with the QR code and with the web address.
Anyway, okay, let me send the broadcast.
These things happen. Technologies. Have you sent a broadcast?
I'm doing it now.
Okay.
So just send a one minute notice. So in a minute, let's get everybody back.
Yeah.
Let's see what the results are.
Yeah.
My guess is most of analysts prefer to call themselves generalists, but we'll see.
A lot of people kind of feel like if they go specialist, they stick out. And then they expect it to be like the know-it-all of it all. So yeah, I prefer the specialist route. Good question that I often get on this, maybe you'll touch on it later, is like when someone's starting as a business analyst, whether they should go generalist or specialist. And we've got a few aspiring BAs in the group today, so it might be a nice idea to think about.
Yeah, I think we'll get there.
Yeah.
There's someone in the waiting room.
Yep, got it. All right, Kathleen, we're just bringing everyone back from the breakout room.
All right, people are coming back.
Yep.
Room number 4 having the longest conversation.
Yeah.
All right, everybody should be back. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this little chat with people you wouldn't otherwise meet. What I want us to do now is just do another round of Slido polling. I hope it will work for everybody. I saw some messages in the chat that it didn't work for all. If it doesn't work, just post it in the chat. That's also fine. So what I want us to see is a person you spoke to, if they are a generalist or a specialist. Now, I understand that we couldn't break you into pairs, so it's probably a little bit harder to answer this question, but just, the general sentiment, I guess, of the group, were people mostly generalists or specialists in the way they identify themselves in their professional career. So there's another poll. If you could try and use this Slido thing again, and let's see what the distribution is. All right. I was just having this conversation with Paul while you were in the breakout rooms, and I said, I bet most of the people would call themselves generalists. Yeah, we should have bet something on it. I would have won. All right. So it's not surprising. I don't know why, but quite often business analysts tend to call themselves generalists more than specialists, and that's okay. That's just the way we see ourselves. Oh, even more generalists. Nice. All right. So as a part of my education, right, the thing that I showed you before, I was set on a path to become a specialist in business processes. Given the master's degree that I did, and then some of the work experience that I got straight after uni. But then at some point, a thought occurred to me. Oh, thanks, Mohammed. I couldn't formulate that thought well enough until I came across this quote from an amazing writer. It's from like a sci-fi book, but it's a nice quote that I really, really like. It goes like this: a human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, con a sheep, design a building, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, and act alone. solve equations, analyze new problems, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, and die gallantly. Specialization is for insects.
Yeah.
And this resonated so well with me. I mean, I use this quote a few times by now at different events and talking about, the specialization and the career development. But I think it makes even more context in, even more sense, in the context of this talk. It makes so much sense that sometimes by choosing and sticking to a specialization, we artificially limit our abilities and possibilities. Yet at the same time, we can't do all the things at a time. There is a reason why specialization exists. We need to get good at the things that we do. So question is, how do these two live together, the specialization and generalization roads? And do they even need to compete? So when thinking about it, I did what any human being, any decent human being would do in year 2023. I went to ChatGPT and asked the question. I tried it in a few different ways. The answer was always something like this. Not super helpful. It was like, meh, do whatever you feel like doing. So it wasn't really a piece of advice. Hey, Paul, I think someone is waiting in the waiting room. Yes, thanks. Cool. So it was like, on one hand, specialization gives you deep understanding. On the other hand, generalization gives you broad understanding, and then you do what you want with that knowledge. So it wasn't super helpful. So I decided to go back in time and do what any decent human being would do in year 2015-ish. So I went to social media. I went through a couple of posts and just looking at people discussing these things. And there was a really nice conversation under this post on LinkedIn. So Jill Ryder, she's a recruiter, and I think she specializes in business analysis. So there was a nice post on LinkedIn about generalist versus specialist. And the conversation was that many business analysts argue that their skills are transferable and they prefer to be seen as generalists. Wherever every...
Reflex volt, nagyon sokat nem vagy itthon.
Sorry?
Sorry, also, can you just mute yourself?
So at the same time, she was saying that every customer, and in her case, customer is a hiring organization, hiring manager, asks for a specialist to go there and just get the job done. And there is a bit of a disconnect in the industry. And there are some comments there, a few interesting thoughts. One of them I want to pull here. Someone made a point that it is unrealistic to look for someone who has deep depth specialist knowledge in all the types of projects in one particular area. But at the same time, it's impossible to find someone who has the full breadth across all industries and project types and domains where you can apply a particular skill. So in essence, it is about having a good balance in depth and breadth of knowledge. That's what you need to look for. And that's really good thought. So let's remember it, because we'll come back to this thought, finding this balance. But then after going through all the social media, LinkedIn conversations, Facebook conversations, I wasn't satisfied enough. So I decided to go back in time even more and do what people would do, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago, read traditional media. So I found a few interesting articles about this. One of them published in Forbes. And what they say is, there are still 2 points of views. One of them is, for example, people like Bill Gates. They credit the success of their business. For example, Gates credited the success of Microsoft to teams of generalists who have broad experiences. And same guy, Gates, recommends this book, Range: Why Generalists Triumph in Specialized World, which is probably a good book, and basically advocating for becoming more of a generalist. But at the same time, there is some research, for example, LinkedIn's insights research that they publish every once in a while, just what they see on the platform. It reflected that majority of fastest growing jobs were actually specialist jobs. So if you are a specialist, you are more employable, it might be easier for you to find a new job and to get a higher salary. And then they refer to having these, common sayings like jack of all trades, master of none, which kind of still exists, right? If you try to specialize in too many things, you actually do not specialize enough in some of them to become more useful or more skilled than someone else who makes it their core specialty. So I was looking at all these conversations, and just thinking, hey, surely there must be a way to somehow balance it out. And surely there must be a way to make sense out of it all. It shouldn't always be either or. There should be another way. So I was thinking about this. I was thinking about, how IIBA plays a role in all of this, coming back to those specialist certifications. And I think I landed on an answer, or rather an opinion, that I want to share with you, how generalization and specialization coexists. It's up to you if you want to accept this opinion or not. I'm not offended, but I think it's an interesting thought, and I just wanted to share it with you and see how it resonates. So follow me. Let's imagine that this is a field of human knowledge. So that's, I don't know what color it is, dark purple-ish. Square is all the knowledge generated by humanity. So let's use this as our canvas and see how do humans learn? How do we gain new knowledge and new skills? So if we assume this is all of the knowledge, this is it didn't work. This is an area of what an individual knows, right? A tiny dot somewhere in the corner. Now, I might need to zoom in a little bit to make it work. Give me a second. So like this. So this is the area of individual's knowledge. Some people may know a bit more than the others. Some people may know a bit less than the others, but the idea is the same. There is something we know depicted as white area on this diagram. Now, the interesting thing happens at the border of this diagram, at the border of the knowledge. You see the kind of pinkish, purplish line over there. So this is the end of our comfort knowledge zone. So you know that behind that line lies something unknown. And on this line happens an interesting thing. So on this line, there are things that you've heard of, but you don't know enough about them. So you know about their existence, but they are not in your active skill set or toolbox. So they are outside of your specialization, if you like. So have you heard about an imposter syndrome before? Yes, no, yes. Yes, surprisingly, people who work in kind of knowledge intensive areas, they tend to suffer from imposter syndrome more than someone else. And you know the reason for that? It is because when you know quite a lot of things, you know that you know even more things, because the more things you learn, the more other things you kind of touch upon, and you know that they exist, but you're not skilled in them. And that gives you that kind of, I don't know, little feeling of not being confident in your own skills and knowledge, because you know how much things they are that are just beyond your reach. And you know who doesn't have imposter syndrome? A person who knows really little, because they know so little that they don't even know about all the things that they don't know. And that makes them super comfortable and super confident in what they're doing. Doesn't work for all the people, but yeah, that's generally how you can get yourself an imposter syndrome. Just learn more and more and realize that there's so much more to learn that never in your lifetime you'll master it all. So yeah, basically the bigger is known, the bigger is the acknowledgement of unknown. Now the question is, how do we learn then? So if we take this as an area of knowledge, what you do is somewhere on the border, you pick a fact or a domain, and you start going deeper into it. So you expand your knowledge in a particular area, and suddenly you have this little spike in your knowledge. Obviously, in 2D, it looks a bit weird. Real knowledge is much more dimensional, but still, you kind of generate this spike and you start expanding this knowledge. So it becomes something like this, right? You got like a bigger, fatter spike in your knowledge. And suddenly, boom, you're a specialist, right? You've got your knowledge and then you've got some specialism on top of it. So what you can do next is you can spend more time enlarging the spike, or you can go in some other area, introducing more and more spikes like this. So you end up with a like weird shape, like this star shape. And then what you do is you start connecting the dots. So you've become more specialized in one area, more specialized in the other area. And now you can suddenly see that there are some connections or some dependencies between the two, and you can borrow knowledge or approaches or skills from one to another. And over time, these spikes, they start to kind of smooth out a little bit, and you end up with a similar shape, but bigger. And that's how you effectively learn. So you start as a generalist, and early in your life, you start as a generalist who equally knows nothing in all the areas. It still counts as generalist, right? Then you develop some specialism in something that effectively makes you a specialist in the thing. And when I say specialist, I'm not comparing you to others. It doesn't mean you know more than someone else. It knows that for you, this is the area where you know the most. So that's your specialism. And then you keep adding areas of specialization that expand your horizon, and you become a specialist, a generalist again. But in this case, you make a quality leap. You are a next generation generalist. And from there, you don't stop learning. You pick another area of specialization, but now it becomes a deeper area, more complex area than it could ever be before. So you become kind of a super specialist, if you like, or a specialist on steroids, a specialist on top of generalization. And then you keep doing it again and again. And that's how we learn as humans. So if we think about it, in a nutshell, you need to be a specialist first to become a generalist. You can't be generalist without having specialisms in your toolbox. But also, being a generalist, you're much better positioned to develop a deeper specialization than any before. So now the question is, why would you want to do it, right? Why would you want to keep following this cycle instead of just developing one specialism and be happy about it? Well, for once, it is something that puts you in a safer position, because who knows how the world changes, right? And one specialist may become obsolete over time. But also, the other reason for that is having these multiple spikes of specialisms allows you to open up creativity. And I'll show you an example of how it may work from a completely different field. So do we have anyone with engineering background here, like old school mechanical engineering? No? Okay, that's cool. So I'll probably show you something that you haven't. Oh, Kaushik. Okay, you probably have heard about it. So there is this model or this theory that was developed in middle of the 20th century in the USSR. There was a guy named Heinrich Altschuler, and he came up with a theory of inventive problem solving for engineers. So it is called TREES. TREES is an acronym for the same, but in Russian. So his idea was, he's a smart guy. He realized that we've got maybe 8 billion people on Earth. So every time an engineer faces a problem that requires some innovative thinking or some out-of-the-box thinking, probably that engineer wouldn't be the first person on Earth to encounter that problem. So his idea was very simple. Every time you have a problem, someone somewhere has already solved it, or something very similar to it. So you can, instead of trying to solve it anew, you can borrow the previous solution and adjust it to your specific circumstance. So what he came up with is an algorithm how to solve innovative problems in engineering. It looks like this. You start with your specific problem, and then you analyze this problem to convert it into a more general problem. So his idea was, at the core of any engineering situation, there is one of the key constraints that can be generalized. And what he called constraints or contradictions is when you need to make something small, but at the same time, it needs to be big, or something needs to be solid, but at the same time, it needs to be flexible. These are the foundational contradictions in engineering. So what he did is he analyzed a lot of patents and some like scientific works in journals, I'm not sure, but he came up with a list of those basic contradictions that can account for majority of engineering problems. And he said, you take your specific engineering problem and you see what is the foundational general problem behind it, what is the contradiction behind it, so that you can then find a general solution to this general problem. And using that general solution, you can come up with your specific solution to your specific problem, having a general approach that kind of works in similar situations. So the way it looked is something like this. It's like a sneak peek of the algorithm, like the meat behind that algorithm. So on the right-hand side, you see kind of a matrix that lists different features that form those contradictions. And then on the left-hand side, the big table, these are different strategies. So basically, depending on the type of the contradiction, you can select a strategy that may help solve the problem. An example could be if you're an engineer, right, and you need to go somewhere in the field to do your engineering work, sometimes you need to use a ruler. And the ruler needs to be long and solid so you can measure the distances, draw the lines and things. But at the same time, you can't take a long ruler with you because it doesn't fit in your toolbox or in your pocket. So it becomes a bit of a problem. So in this case, an object needs to be long, but it needs to be short, right? And that's the contradiction inside it. So to solve it, you could use principle number one. It's called division in this table, or segmentation in some other tables. Basically, what you do is you invent a folding ruler that is still solid, but at the same time, it becomes smaller. So that's one of the kind of silly, simple examples of how this works. Another example is if you use any eye drops, you know that they need to be liquid to get into your eye, but if they stay liquid, they will just, get out of the eye pretty quickly. So again, there's another contradiction. It needs to be liquid, but it kind of needs to be solid. And the solution to it is to change the parameter of the material. So when it gets into the eye and contacts the eye, it becomes a gel. So it turns more solid and it stays in the eye. So this is how you could have a problem, analyze the contradiction, and then using this table, find a general strategy to solve that contradiction, and then come up with something that will work for you. Now, why am I showing you this? Obviously, we're not engineers, most of us. But if we look at it from the point of view of our conversation today, what the inventor of trees did, he actually created a tool for specialists to gain the benefits of being a generalist. So this tool allows you to borrow practices from similar but different disciplines to solve your specific specialist problems. And that is exactly the role that a good generalist plays in the organization. They can see and understand the patterns in one area or one domain or one problem, and they can find similarities in others, so that they can use some synergy from having all of these different knowledge domains in their head to help and find a solution, or guide a specialist, or inspire a specialist to find a solution based on advice from another area. Now, that was quite a tangent that we went on, but I hope it illustrates the point and kind of the value of having the both, and how combining the both actually helps people become a little bit more creative. So, coming back to the very original question, what does IIBA have to do with it? In the business analysis world, we've got our IIBA guide, and we can look at it as kind of the core of our profession. It is what explains business analysis, arguably open for criticism and things, but it does the job. We also have these specialized bodies of knowledge, and I hope I listed all of them, I'm not sure. But the idea is they're not going to make you experts in their fields. And I was probably one of the first to say a lot of criticism to IIBA about them, meaning, let's take cybersecurity, for example, CCA. I was looking at it and I was thinking, which reasonable security professional would benefit from IIBA's cybersecurity certification? They've got their own things, CompTIA and NIST, others. They don't need this. So what's the point? But then I realized these are not actually designed to make you an expert, and they're not designed for the experts in that field. What they do is they help you with spiking your knowledge into those other knowledge areas. So based on your generalist, well-rounded BA background, you can develop extra specialism to add in your backpack. And from there, you will have enough visibility of that area to start expanding the knowledge on your own and figuring out what to do about it. Or maybe finding those connections between that knowledge area and others to find more versatile and creative ways of solving problems. Just like Art Schuler did it for trees, opening up the world of generalization for specialists, IIBA is kind of doing the same here, very differently, but I think it works. I also think it works the other way around. If you come from, say, cybersecurity backgrounds or business data analytics background or some others, you can use these as your bridge into bigger business analysis knowledge. So coming from there, it will be much easier to figure out what is written, for example, in the guides to business data analytics. And from there, based on that knowledge, it will be much easier to figure out how business analysis works in general outside of data world. So I think that's what those specialisms are actually for, those specialized certifications are for. Now, we've got a couple of minutes left. I want to give you two things to take away with you, just two thoughts that I want you to remember. Or maybe not remember, think about. Thought number one, this guy here, he's an astronaut. I think he was the first Canadian to become a NASA pilot astronaut. So quite a big deal. And in my mind, an astronaut is an extreme example of a specialist. You need to be the best of the best in your field to become one, like literally the best in the world. And many people train their whole life to become an astronaut and they never go to space because there is someone who is just a tiny bit better than them. But at the same time, I was reading his book, An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. Pretty good book, actually, really inspiring if you want any, nighttime reading. There was something that caught my attention. It wasn't the point of the book, but it's something that the author was coming back to again and again. So he is probably one of the best pilots on Earth, and that is his specialization. And for many people, that would be it. They achieved the peak in their career and they have nowhere else to specialize. Like they're literally the best. Still, this guy, he takes time and effort to learn physics on postgraduate level. And then based on that to learn some more advanced fields of physics and math and engineering, just because he thought, well, this might be helpful during my mission in space. I don't know yet, but I'd rather do it. At the same time, he is also invested in learning Russian because when he is in space, half of the crew speaks Russian as the first language. So he keeps developing that skill in addition to the rest of the skills that he's got. So surprisingly enough, an astronaut is an extreme example of being a specialist, but at the same time, an extreme example of being a generalist. And I think we all would benefit from being a little bit more like astronauts. So getting good at what we're doing, but also be open-minded and curious enough and human enough to learn more and never stop learning, because that's what makes us humans. Another thought that I wanted to leave you with is it's good to be a generalist to deal with any problem, but if everybody is a generalist, there's nothing unique about here. There's no uniqueness in your approach, in your in the ways you present yourself and the ways you approach problems. So you need to be generalist to deal with problems, but you need to be specialist enough to be unique in what you're doing. So this beautiful picture of all these cars that actually solving the same problem, look the same, cost the same, and are pretty much the same. It's probably a great example of becoming too much of a generalist in our lives. So we probably want to avoid it, unless, I don't know. I probably would, don't know about you. So the very last thing I want us to do now is to jump on another poll and just have a quick think. For you personally, where you are in your professional development right now, what might be that extra specialism that will help you the most in this in your current situation? What might be the extra step or extra, piece of learning that you would want to add to your skill set toolbox right now? And maybe it will be an inspiration for others to have a look at what others want to learn and explore that for themselves.
Whilst everyone's doing their Slido, just get ready with your questions, because we're going to have to fire over a few questions before we close for the day.
Someone differently has problems spelling integration. So funny. Data analytics, basic testing, DevOps, knowledge management. Nice. Some really good suggestions. All right.
Rihanna says in the chat, she's got a few things there as well.
Yeah,
talking about data analytics.
Yeah, I think still Slido not working for some people. I don't know why. Sorry about that. IIBA, CBDA. Yeah. I think data is definitely a big thing. I mean, we generate tons of data and we've started to actually making sense of them. So
I'm surprised it's not there is AI.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny with AI. It's been around for decades, but only recently it went on the trajectory that is visible to a lot of people. And now it's all, I guess, symptoms of being in a hype. Everybody wants to do it, not necessarily for good reasons, but yeah, it should be interesting to watch what's happening there. I love your point about the implications of AI, more important than AI itself. Yes. Robotic process automation, that's another interesting thing. Yeah, I can talk about it for quite a long time. I think it's just a very fun way of solving a very old problem.
Or maybe let's get you on for another webinar.
I don't think I'm specialized enough to talk about it. I can just share opinions. All right.
That's fine.
Cool. All right. Like, if you've got any questions, we can probably open the floor now because we've got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, everyone's welcome to unmute themselves if they want to ask a question. I just want to make a comment, and that it was interesting because I think my thought process has been challenged, and it's still being challenged, because my initial go-to would be saying that anyone that's starting as a business, start generalist and then become specialist. But then as you're talking, going through the slides, I realized that I didn't even start as a generalist. I started as a specialist in reporting. So I was like, okay, so rethink on that. Has anyone got a question that they'd love to ask?
Say question in the chat, which one is better? I think the whole point of this talk is it's not the question to ask. It's not which one is better. It is more on which stage you are now in your development. Are you in the stage of gaining specialism, or the stage where you've specialized enough to broaden it and to become more of a generalist?
Yeah, that's an interesting, and I agree to what you answered there. Going back to my example, I started as a specialist, became a generalist, and now I'm going back to specialist. But it's all based on where I'm at in my career.
Yeah, I think similar thing happened to me in my career as well. So yes, I started with business processes, moved on to general business analysis, but then started to specialize in very specific consulting gigs and things. But now I'm just stepping back again out of it and trying to see what I'm doing with my career.
Someone mentioned earlier about recruiters, and I think that's an important thing to take into consideration if you want to think about general specialists. Look at what the market's wanting. What is the market looking for? And that will kind of give you an idea of where you fit and what you need to do.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Right. I don't think it's any other questions. So going once, going twice. Okay, we'll close it there. Igor, absolutely fantastic presentation. It really challenged my thought process, as I said before. And I really think it's a good conversation for business analysts to have. Please go and visit Igor's website. He's got a few training courses on there as well. Go connect with him on LinkedIn as well, and subscribe to the Analyst Corner. Some really great articles coming out. Just before we close, just want to remind, we've got Carl Vickers and Candace coming up in a couple of months' time. We're giving away a free copy of their book, Essential Software Requirements. Software Requirements Essentials. He's very particular about how I say that. So, but yeah, really a great opportunity. Yeah, there's Cornelius done your Udemy courses already. There we go. There's a good.
Nice.
So yeah, awesome. Igor, thank you very much. Any final words from you?
It was nice to be here and to have this conversation. So I'm really looking forward to having more of these. Thanks everybody for participation. And yeah, please join the next webinar. Carl is an amazing human being, so I'm looking forward to getting some bits of his wisdom. And also, yeah, please stay in touch. Find me on LinkedIn. Let's get connected. I post different things once in a while that might be interesting. I also have a book coming soon. Never trusted myself to finish it, but it's a book on foundations of information technology for starting business analysts or project managers. So if you're at the start of your career, it might be helpful. If you're already well developed in your career, that probably will not be helpful because by the time you probably know all the things. But still, yeah, let's stay connected on LinkedIn. I'll post an update when it is available.
Yes, let me know when it's available because we'll get you on as well, because I love interviewing authors. So yeah, I've got Helen Winters